Hello everyone and welcome back to Maximum Attack. Another week, another rally video. This week, I feel like I say this a lot, but I'm saying it again, this week is a little bit of a rant from me. Not a rant as such, but I think it's an interesting discussion that I wanted to have while we're in this slightly quiet phase before Monza Rally next week, which looks like it's going ahead. Despite the case numbers in Italy not being as low as I think we would all hope. However, it looks like it's going ahead, so we're going to hopefully get a fitting finale to this year's WRC, and hopefully, without any bias whatsoever, but lots of bias, hopefully Elfyn Evans will win. Not necessarily the rally, but the championship. Anyway, let's put that aside. We'll talk about that next week. This week's video is about money. Maybe I'm bitter because I don't have enough of it, but I wanted to talk this week a little bit about the cost of rallying, but particularly the cost of rally cars. I was flicking through the classifieds this week, as I often do, probably too often do, looking at what kind of cars are out there for sale. I do a lot of that because obviously I do the weekly Rally Car of the Week feature, and where I feature a rally car that's on the market and talk a little bit about it. And if you haven't looked at those posts, why not do it, because they're cool. I'm biased again, aren't I? Anyway, I look at a lot of rally cars for sale, and one thing I've noticed this week that has disappointed me a little bit is the cost of a lot of cars on the second-hand market, particularly at the entry level. So a few weeks ago I posted a Honda Civic rally car that was for sale. It was a Type R EP3, if you know what that is or care. Japanese car fans love a code, don't they? They love a model code. It was about £10,000, I think, and to me it seemed quite a nicely spec car. It had a nice welding cage and reasonably good suspension and bits and pieces. And I didn't think it was too bad in cost terms. What I have noticed, though, is that a lot of entry-level cars, to me at least, seem quite expensive, especially when you consider what you would pay for that same type of car if it didn't have a logbook, a competition logbook or passport or whatever we call them these days. So you might, at the entry level of our sport, you tend to see a lot of hatchbacks, Fiestas, Clios, 205s, Novas, Corsas, all that kind of thing. And what I've noticed is that as soon as a car has a passport, particularly a rally passport, the cost goes up quite a lot. So the trend we see with a lot of entry-level rally cars is that they're not just popular for rallying, they're also popular for racing and for track days. And what I find a little bit concerning is that if you took a car that was built for track days instead of built for rallying, you might find that it's half the price of the rally car. Now, I understand that in order to be eligible for rallying, there are things that you have to do to that car that cost money. So, a rally car has to have cut-off switches, it has to have fire extinguishers, it has to have in-date seats and harnesses, and it has to have an intercom. And all of this costs money. But when you consider the cost difference, in some cases, in my experience, the rally car is twice the price of the track day car. And in my experience of building my own rally car, the extra components required to turn it into a logbooked car, well, they're not £5,000, are they? Yes, you have to have in-date seats and you can spend a lot of money on seats, but most track day enthusiasts will buy new seats anyway. So I think the cost there is a bit of an irrelevance. Most roll cages are certified for competition use, so that's a bit of an irrelevance. So really what it comes down to is fire extinguishers, which are less than £300, and cut-off switches, which are 20 quid, and then a sump guard and a tank guard, which £500 at most, really, if you're clever. So the difference to me between a track day car and a rally car, being generous here, are probably £2,000. So why is it that a £5,000 track day car, once it's got the necessary minimum requirements to be a rally car, why is it suddenly £10,000. How have we got ourselves to that position? Now, I understand that if you build your own car, you want to try and recoup some of that cost and investment when you come to sell it. But as someone who's been involved in motorsport and aftermarket modified cars and things for 15 plus years, you don't get your money back after you've built a car. That's just not how it works. Cars are not worth the sum of the parts that you've put into them, unfortunately. So I think that is a concern for me, because at a time when I think we need to be encouraging more and more people into the sport, I think it's a shame that entry-level cars are potentially so expensive. Does a car having the most basic level of competition preparation warrant being twice as much as an unprepared car? I'm not sure that it does it? Yes, I mean, once you get into a properly prepared car and you start adding different gearboxes and engine tuning and all that sort of thing, you can see where the money goes, and you can see why the cost is high. A car with a sequential gearbox and throttle bodies and different camshafts and forged pistons and all that kind of thing, well, I can see why a car like that might be £15,000 or £20,000, because it's cost a lot of money to build. But a car that's got a roll cage in it, some bucket seats, fire extinguisher, some guard, tank guard, cut-off switches, that's not a £10,000 car to me, and I think that's a worrying trend that I think we need to be cautious about. Like I say, I understand why people want to try and recoup their investment, but I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? I think, when people have put their own money in, I think they want that money back, but I think it can be off-putting to newcomers, and I think some of the prices that I'm seeing being asked for some cars are a little bit on the cheeky side, in my view. And that seems to have grown a lot in the last few years. It used to be very possible to buy an entry-level stage rally car for probably £3,000, if you're looking at a very basic kind of micro-type car. If we look at some of the Formula 1000 cars that are going around at the moment, some of those are £7,000 or £8,000, and that is a lot of money, and you could build one for less than that. I'm sorry, you could build one for less than that. So, anyway, yes, so that is one side of it, but what concerns me more than that, 7 minutes of wittering, is how it's not just at the entry level where we're seeing this very high cost approach. I think what we've come to is a situation in the upper echelons of the sport where FIA cars are also extremely expensive. So we now have a structure of going from Rally 5 to Rally 1. I had to think about that, didn't I? And it used to be that a Rally 5 car is the equivalent of an old R1 car. And an R1 car was extremely basic in that it was a production car with some upgraded dampers, perhaps a shorter final drive in the gearbox, and a standard engine, and the safety requirements. And then you jumped up to an R2 car, equivalent of a Rally 4 car, which had sequential gearbox, more tuned engine, slightly better suspension, etc., etc. But now a Rally 5 car is quite a serious machine. A Rally 5 car, in comparison to an old R1 car, well, a Rally 5 car now has a sequential gearbox. Yes, it has a relatively standard engine, but a sequential gearbox adds a considerable amount of complexity and cost, which makes entering any FIA event now a very expensive proposition. A Rally 5 Fiesta or Clio is €50,000. That is a lot of money. A Rally 4 Fiesta, not picking on M Sport here, but they have the ladder of opportunity, is €70,000. And what we're about to see is a Rally 3 car, which is probably €100,000. And these are very, very big numbers. Very big numbers. And that concerns me, because it makes it very expensive for someone to do FIA events. Certainly if you want to buy a new car, an FIA approved, an FIA homologated car is incredibly expensive. On top of doing the events themselves, the maintenance of that car is very expensive because it has a sequential gearbox. So that concerns me. And then what you see is a trickle down into the older cars. So if you look at the last generation of Fiesta in R2T format, you're looking at 40,000 euros to buy one of those. Even the original R2 car, the 1.6 litre R2 car, well, you won't get an R2 car for less than £20,000. Even going back further to a Group N Fiesta ST, if you want one with all of the proper bits in it, still with its Sadev dog engagement gearbox and its Riga dampers, you're probably looking at £15,000. And these are very big numbers to me, very, very big numbers. And you know, for the Fiesta ST, we're looking at a car that is no longer FIA homologated. The R2, the 1.6 litre R2 cars are, the majority of those are now out of FIA homologation. And that to me presents a real problem, because if you want to move into that area of FIA events, you're looking at very big bills. For the clubman who's looking for a more modern car, rather than building endless Escorts and Novas and things like we continue to do, there's very little incentive, because an R2 Fiesta, for example, or an R2 Citroën C2 would be £20,000. To make that genuinely competitive against a clubman 1.6 litre car in the UK could potentially at least cost you £5,000 to £10,000. These are very big numbers, aren't they? To me, they're very, very big numbers, and I think they are really concerning. Rallying has always been expensive, hasn't it? It's always been expensive. I've seen figures going back 25 years, and rallying was still expensive then, you know, even in Group N cars. A Group N Mitsubishi Lancer could have cost you £100,000 going back 20 years. So, you know, rallying has never been cheap. But I am concerned at the trickle-down effect of the current ladder of R category, or they're not R category cars anymore, are they? But you know, the Rally 5 to Rally 1 car, I think they're too expensive. I think Rally 1 cars particularly are too expensive. I see very little incentive to have a Rally 1 car, because I think most drivers would go straight into a Rally 4 car. So I think Rally 5 has now become largely pointless outside of one-make championships, which is a shame. And I fear for the longer-term future of the sport at national and club level, when these cars are still so expensive when they're used. To me, and maybe I'm just being unrealistic, a Group N Fiesta ST with all of the bits is a £10,000 car now, at most. It's not a fast car. If you put that in a 2 litre category of a clubman rally in the UK, it would be obliterated. It's not a fast car. So I find it strange how they hold their value. I know they're used in one-make championships still, but to me they're a very expensive car, and you know, and similarly with R2 cars, the older 1600 R2 cars, they're very, very expensive for what they are. And that is a result of them being so expensive when they were new. And I think that is something that the FIA need to be really cautious of. I know they're talking about cost caps in Rally 1, and they've always talked about cost caps in Rally 2 and Rally 3. But I think we need to be really cautious of how much modern rally cars cost, because primarily it makes it expensive for people looking to take up the sport professionally and looking to get noticed by a big team. But more concerning than that for me is rallying is predominantly an amateur sport. It has always been about the amateur. And if you make those modern cars prohibitively expensive for the amateur, you end up in the situation that we're in now, where you barely see any of them below FIA events. You see, you know, clubman events, certainly in the UK and Europe, dominated by cars that are 20 plus years old, because no one is willing to invest in a modern car that meets the, you know, more recent FIA requirements, yet is hopelessly outgunned by something that you can build at home in your shed. And I think for me that's a real problem. So that's this week's video. That was a bit of a rant. I'm going to wrap it up because I'm talking too much. I'd love to know what you think about this, so please comment and let me know what you think. And as always, please like and subscribe and follow if you're on YouTube, InstaFace, or wherever you're watching this. But thanks for watching, and I will catch you again soon.